Sorry about the wait for this, and thank you very much for making the trip all the way into the office, and thank you guys on the Zoom for taking your time out. I'm going to do my best to moderate the chat as much as I can. For the purpose of the recording, please just shoot across as many questions as you possibly can. I'll try and get to them all. But any questions that you do send over, I'll make sure that we get compiled in a list, and between myself, Raisa, and Talita, we'll get answered for you guys as well. You guys obviously get preferential treatment because you're sitting here. So any questions that you guys have as I'm going, please just interrupt me, okay? We'll just try and, I'm not going to sit here and present to you guys. I'm going to sit here and chat to you guys about it, but I will get through the slides. I'll make sure that these are shared with you afterwards. If you guys don't get a chance to kind of view them and see them and read out the different statistics that everyone online is going to get. But you guys are all going to get through the recording. So we'll kick it off. So for anyone who's joined onto recording, skip ahead to 9 minutes. Probably the best thing to do. But thanks very much for taking the time today. My name is Robert O'Neill. Nobody in the world calls me Robert, so it's Robbie if anyone wants to ask me questions or reach out to me afterwards. And I'm a principal customer success manager here at LinkedIn, and I support our global clients on how they utilize LinkedIn as a platform to sell to prospective leads, prospective accounts, companies, and individuals. I've been at LinkedIn 5 years as of this week, and I spent the first 4 years of my time here supporting our global clients in how they utilize LinkedIn to find talent. So hopefully I'm going to be able to help you guys reverse engineer some of the tactics that they would utilize, some of the information that they look to use to identify candidates for their roles, just as information that you can incorporate then into your profiles, how you set it up, what kind of stories you tell, what kind of information you include, and how they can go about creating that link as to why you might be an appropriate fit for the organization, for the role, and for the team. Okay. Yes. I can, and I really, really appreciate the call out. Thank you so much for that, because a lot of times I just get going and then I don't slow down. So thank you very much for that. Couple of things that I'm going to cover really quickly before we get into like the bones of the profile are just a small little bit about getting to know LinkedIn. What is it? What can it do? How can you guys use it in confidence? One of the kind of most important things for me when I think about how I recommend that people utilize social media platforms. If I did a show of hands for everybody on the Zoom, I think I'd probably get about 99%. But for those in the room today, how many of you guys have a social media platform, any type of profile across any of the social media networks? Yes, no? Everyone?
Everyone, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. How many of you guys are told how to use it by someone else? Resounding no's within the room, and I'd imagine resounding no's on the Zoom as well. I wanted to ask that question, and I always ask that question because I think it's really important. I want to make sure that what I'm recommending to you guys is useful, that there's no pressure assigned to it, and that what you guys are going to hear from me, hopefully, is going to give you the confidence to go and take these steps, okay? I'm going to spend a good bit of time on your profile, and how I like to think of your profile is your story. I'll share a little bit about my experience and how I've utilized it to communicate to essentially to strangers when it comes to how I was sitting in the job seeker space for over a year, and what I had to do to be able to try and reinvent my profile to make sure that I was communicating in the right way to the right people. I'm going to spend the remaining chunk of time most likely on the jobs and company research, because there's so much information that we can take. There's so many really key elements of what they're asking that we can take into making sure that our profile is set up to speak to those. Okay, you guys are all probably coming from different backgrounds, different levels of education, different experiences in terms of your job history. Okay, there's going to be something here for everybody. So hopefully what I'm going to be able to share with you guys today is a real framework for how you can A, use the platform to communicate effectively, B, allow the platform to do some of the work for you, and then C, hopefully make sure that we can get ourselves in that position to get into our interview processes and hiring processes. So I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on the getting to know LinkedIn, but we like to think of LinkedIn as an ecosystem, and our economic graph demonstrates this kind of really well on a consistent basis. So at the minute, we have over 950 million members. We've got over 58 million, I think that's close to 60 million now, companies represented on the platform. On any given day and any given time, we have over 14 million jobs live on the platform. All of this is globally, and all of those jobs amount into what we call job views, which is people actually clicking into those roles, and we get over 60 million of those per week. We've close to 40,000 skills listed on the platform, which is a really important thing. I want that to stick in your guys' head for a couple of minutes. And then we've got institutions of education that are listed all across the world. All of these things and all of these entities and all of these individuals and companies amalgamate into over 358 billion data touch points on an annual basis. So when we talk about ecosystem, we talk about everything that's fed in to the system in terms of the structure that we give it for companies to represent themselves, individuals, organizations, institutes of technology, colleges, universities. All of these things and all of these different levels and layers amount into a huge amount of coordination, collaboration, and communication. The 3 C's for me that I always think about when I think about the platform and the capabilities. And LinkedIn has, and probably will be for a number of years, been the most trusted social media platform across the globe. Doesn't matter what new ones come in, we tend to have that highest confidence level in terms of how many people are coming on a daily basis. Why they're coming to the platform is a really important part for me within that as well. Because obviously we have access to information, right? It's a really great place to gather news on industries, news on organizations, news updates from individuals that are there. We've got access to opportunity, and we can align those entities in terms of companies and the opportunities that they have to offer as well. But there's so many different platforms that do those things, right? We've got news outlets, we've got social media, we've got job boards, we've got a lot of different things that we can do and go to get all of this information. For me, the key differentiator is down here. It's within the people that bring all of those different things together. And the anticipation of use is a really important thing for you guys to remember when it comes to that confidence of coming into LinkedIn. We know it's the most trusted platform around globally, but the anticipation of members that come to use this platform is they get the opportunity to not just engage with opportunity, not just engage with information, but to engage with the people within the middle of those. And those people bring that link and that bridge to it. I'll ask you guys on the Zoom too, if you wouldn't mind answering this one within the chat. I'll open it up here and have a look. Do you guys, and I'll ask everyone in the room as well, so you guys might just call out your answers to me. Does anyone know what the #1 action undertaken by LinkedIn members on our platform is today? I'll give you a clue. It's been the same since the platform originated. So what is the #1 activity that people do on LinkedIn?
They are searching the jobs.
Connections, job searches. Close. You guys are in the top 10. It's really funny because people never get this one right. Anyone in the chat?
Filling out profile.
Filling out a profile, updating the profile. Yeah, again, you're in the top 10, not the #1 though. I'll give you a hint. It's been the exact same since the platform originated. Hasn't changed. It's viewing other members' profiles. Okay, so with all of the capabilities and functionalities that LinkedIn has, viewing somebody else's profile is still the #1 activity that's undertaken by members across the globe. That is my question and my segue, as always, to bring me into the next part, which is your profile and your story. Now, I like to think of it as a story because I like to think of my profile as a way for me to communicate with people who have no way of understanding who I am as an individual, what I would bring to a team, what skills I've gathered within my working history, and what I would be as a part of their organization. Now, that's quite a lot to use to communicate to people, right? But it's quite important to kind of think about it. If you break down all the different sections of your profile, there's a lot of great things that we can do to be able to communicate who we are and what we're doing. Okay, so I'll go through some of these really quickly, okay? Because I do want to spend a little bit of time within a demonstration, and I'll kind of go through my profile and my story and how mine has evolved over the last number of years. So that question that I asked earlier on about who here is dictated on how they use social media, please, please, please remember the second line here is it's 100% up to you. I want you guys to be totally comfortable here. I don't want to put any pressure on to what you're already doing and dealing with and facing, okay? But when we think about your profile, some of the kind of basics and the foundations we would have will be your photograph, your location, and your experience. Okay, so a photograph shows there is an individual behind this profile, and this is that person. Years ago, people would have anticipated it has to be a professional headshot, perfect clarity, whatever ratio or pixelation. I'm not the person for photography. Right now, any smartphone or camera will give you a high resolution photograph. Okay, any background or any other effects that you apply to it is totally up to you. So having an up-to-date profile and having a good photograph, and I just mean good in terms of the quality of the photograph, is the most important thing. From a visual point of view, you've got your background image as well. So if you think about someone who's landing on your profile, it's important to make sure that it's visually set up to appeal to someone who logs onto it. So I would always recommend that you guys have a background photo, and that can be taken from any Google stock image that's there or anything that resonates with you guys, or maybe there's a photograph that you've taken in a landscape mode that you can add in there. It's totally up to you. Your location is actually a really important one as well, because when you think of the tools that recruiters have access to, they can essentially utilize every piece of information within your profile to create a search to generate profiles. So if you think of the location that they might be hiring for, the job titles that might be within your previous experience, for example, the relevant skills that they're listing out that they need, that are required for the role, all of these pieces of information, your level of education, the types of degrees that you have studied. So all of this information is really key, and we've got the capacity to do it all within our profile as well. The summary and about section, I'm going to leave for a minute because I want to speak to that with a little bit more depth in a couple of minutes when I get into the presentation. But again, we've got our education, recommendations, interests. One of the big ones that I will focus on when I get into the demo in particular is the skills part of it. So more than 50% of organizations are utilizing skills only as a way to hire individuals. And what that does is it allows them to just, I'll finish my sentence and then I'll answer your question 100%. So what that allows them to do is to diversify their workforce. They're no longer looking for the cultural fits. The good organizations of this world are now looking for cultural additions, and they're utilizing skills as an equalizer, as a pathway into their organization. Yes, you had a question.
Yeah, for the same role, the different recruiters, they choose different skills. And is it okay? I mean, to add as many skills as I can related to me and my role, or better to choose like partner plan? Because when, for example, I'm applying for a job, yeah, I have this line from LinkedIn that these many skills are my and usually it's not my
Yeah.
And like I'm just lost. If I have too many skills, it will be like 100 or something.
Yeah.
If I have too less, it might not affect recruiters, you know. And
100%. Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act. So the question there was, do I have to go by the jobs that are there and list out every single skill and max out for one particular role? There's no kind of quick answer to that, I'm afraid. And hello, welcome, by the way. What I would do is essentially kind of what I'm going to show you within the job searching part of it is taking out what are the core skills. So what are the kind of mandatory required skills that you have to have? Because you have the capacity to list 50 on your profile. Okay, so that should give you enough wiggle room to having, say, the top 20 for a particular role, and then maybe another 20 that are broad and specific to you. The way that I like to think about the skills is if you break them down into what they call hard skills and soft skills. So hard skills would be something like programming, C++, Python, SQL, right? I say all of these things as if I know what they are, but I couldn't open a book and tell you what they look like, right? Whereas the soft skills are things like your leadership, communication, relationship building, innovation, right? These are things that are specific to you that you've learned and gathered experience in over time. So I appreciate it's not an exact answer to your question, but you have to try and strike the right balance. But and yeah, go on one more.
Yeah.
Could you speak up tiny bit so the guys could hear you if you don't mind?
Have like profiles on different languages.
Mm.
Related to skills. I can add skills in Russian language, for example, and I can add in Ukrainian and English. Which better to concentrate on? I mean, LinkedIn is translating for recruiters other.
So have you got multiple
or-
profiles?
Yeah,
Okay, first thing to do is get it down to one.
I cannot because I cannot. If I delete my main profile that was created on Russian language, my English profile will be deleted as well.
Yeah, so you the best thing to do is to bring them in to one from if you think of it from a recruiting experience, right? If they
just translate the Russian
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I know it's a bit of work, I'm afraid. But it just what it will do is it will give a recruiter who's finding your profile confidence in that this is the individual that I'm speaking to. If you have 3 and 4 there, then there's assumptions that they could make off the back of that, right? Maybe that wouldn't lead them to have the best experience.
Last time we were here, we asked this question, and we've been told we cannot delete the main profile. So better just
No, so what
translate,
you can do is you can just bring them now that you've got like a couple, you can just bring them all into the one if you log a support ticket. I'll show you afterwards how to do that. Yeah. But the skills is really important, like that, to kind of focus on the right blend in the mix. And I'm a huge fan of reverse engineering. So I'm going to show you guys how I would go about utilizing the information that's included, say, in a job description, to making sure that you have that information, whether it's by keywords or by the actual skills that you have listed on your profile. So now, can I ask, have you guys already been given access to LinkedIn Premium? No? Yeah, one person has. Has
I
it?
think I tried last week.
So this would be like a free link that
Yeah,
Talita
yeah.
would have shared out. Yeah. Okay. For anyone that doesn't, please reach out to Talita after today. We'll make sure you guys you get just 6-month pass on it. It opens up so many different functionality options. One of which is identifying what skills are listed within the role that aren't listed on your profile. And it's a really quick and easy way for you to click in, add these to profile, and away we go. So if someone hasn't started out their profile fully, if they haven't completed out the skills, this is a really great way to be able to do it. And that's kind of one of the smallest things that this will bring in terms of a value addition to what you guys are already doing. So cannot recommend it enough. I do have a slide to speak to it now in a second, which is a really nice segue. Essentially what you guys will get access to from having the capability to utilize Premium are you will get access to LinkedIn Learning courses for anywhere that you're looking to upskill in, or anywhere that you're looking to really identify on your profile that I have a proficiency within this, I have completed this, I have gotten this credential, I've gotten this badge, or I've gotten this certificate. You'll get access to LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which, guys, is hugely powerful as a tool. What this gives you the option to do is to actually isolate out companies by size, by revenue, by location, by the amount of employees they have. You can then use that information to identify the types of companies that you might look to work for, and then find the people that are working within that organization. You'll also get access to up to 15 InMails a month. These are people that you would not be able to regularly send messages to unless you're sending a connection request. Right. So now you've got the capacity to learn and develop your skills, to identify companies and the individuals at those companies. You've got the capacity now to speak to them and engage with them. And you'll get more information in terms of who's viewing your profile. You will get more information in terms of company demographics, company headcount. So basically, like, are they hiring people or are they firing people? You'll see what departments are growing. You'll see what departments' headcount are growing over time. You'll see how the overall headcount is performing. And you'll also be able to see other companies that are relevant within that industry too. There's one other thing that I'm missing in that. Oh yeah, and you guys will be able to search unlimited searches across the tool. So if you guys have been putting out like searches for individuals, searches for organizations, you might hit a ceiling. No, you won't. That ceiling is going to be removed, and you guys will get access to this for 6 months. So I really cannot recommend this enough in terms of like the functionality and the doors that it will open in terms of like what you guys will be able to do. Couple of other updates. You guys were probably more than aware of these already, but has everyone seen the open to work photo frame that you can add onto your profile? Yes, in the room at least.
Work for, yeah,
Yeah, cool. So for anyone that's on the Zoom that hasn't as well, this is a really great piece of functionality that's been added in the last year, which is essentially an external communicator. It's the way that I like to think about it. If there are people within your network that weren't aware that you're sitting in the job seeking space, that weren't aware that you're looking for new opportunities, here's where you can go about identifying that on your profile, but also labeling the types of jobs, the types of work, the location, and if you're available to start right away as well. These are all really strong cues in terms of like what your network can do for you for those that have already got established profiles. Because one of the things I always kind of say, particularly when you're within the job seeking space, is people can't help if they don't know that you need help. The better way to frame it is people can't offer you a referral or can't put you forward for a referral if they don't know that you're looking for that type of a job, right? I was 12 months when I moved back from Canada 6 years ago now, almost 7. And I was 12 months sitting in the job seeking space because I was trying to move from one industry to another. And it was really difficult to try and find any type of door that could be open. And if I had this piece of functionality, it probably would have half that time because I was reaching out to loads of different people, new people, didn't focus or prioritize my current network. And I put a post out on LinkedIn, and within 3 days, I had an interview from a friend of mine who was in recruitment. So it's a really powerful thing to think about, like what your network doesn't know, they cannot know. From a recruitment point of view and how recruiters utilize the tool, this is a specific spotlight feature that they will use to identify people that are ready to move into this role right away. Potentially, yeah. Yeah, that's a valid point.
I know for police, when they put the open they offer them less salary than others.
So that was it, and that's a really interesting point. So the question that was posed, or kind of the comment that was made on the open to work, is that it can essentially put you in a difficult negotiating position when it comes to salary, right? So there's a way that you can turn this on privately so that only recruiters can see it, and you can turn it on to say that I'm casually browsing as opposed to actively applying. That might be something that you could do, but the other thing that I would recommend as well is when it comes to like the negotiation side of the things, a lot of times now companies, they won't speak specifically about salary, but they'll speak about the pay range. So asking about what is the pay range for this role. So what is someone who's brand new to this role coming in at in terms of salary, and what is someone who's working at this role in 3 years? What are they? So what is the pay range? Every company will have a range for their roles, and you'll be able to know then if you're going in, say, at the lowest quartile or if you're going in at the highest. So that would be kind of how I would tackle that, to be able to keep it public, but to be able to go in with confidence to a negotiation to say, like, look, I know I'm looking for a role, but I also know my value and I know my worth. So if you can tell me what your company's pay scale is, or the pay range is within this particular role at this seniority level, then that'll really help me in terms of our negotiation. And it really will step you above, or you will stand out as a candidate. Those that do that as well, the hiring manager knows, okay, I have someone who's got their head screwed on here, that has good communication skills, strong negotiation, and knows their worth, which is really important. I know it's a really difficult kind of balance to strike when you're sitting within that job seeking space too, right? But that will be my recommendation there. And a couple of other things that have been added as well. We now have the capacity to add a career break with a lot of really great context that you guys can add in here. So if you have been sitting in the job seeking space for quite a while as well, here's where you can share with the potential employer what you've been doing within that time, or what is the reason or rationale for it as well. It's a really great piece of kind of functionality because a lot of questions that I used to get asked over the last couple of years are, well, I have a gap in my working history and employers see that as a red flag. Now you can speak to it. There's about 15 to 20 different options that you can select, right? Whether it's relocation, whether you were part of a global layoff, right? Whether you were caregiving for someone within your family, or whether you were upskilling, or whether you just took a gap year for yourself, right? A lot of different ways that you can go about that. Now, before I get into the job search, I did want to just jump in onto a profile for a quick second. So if this ever jumps down for a minute, this always happens to me. Brilliant. Okay, so you guys should be seeing my homepage now, and I'm just going to jump quickly on to my profile. So just to share out, like in terms of like the kind of functionality on how you can go about updating and what are the kind of key pieces of information to include within your profile, right? So straight away, you can see here, I've got my banner image, I've got my profile image, it's black and white. People used to always recommend not having black and white. I'm comfortable with it, so I use it. That photo was also taken about 8 years ago, and I still haven't updated it, right? But I'm comfortable with it. I think it still relatively represents me, bar maybe the 2 massive bags under my eyes since I've had 2 children, but that kind of comes with the territory of being a dad. One of the things that I didn't get to call out within the kind of earlier slides on the profile is your headline that you have the capacity to add. This is a really powerful communication tool. That's the way I want you guys to think about these components of your profile. Because if someone is looking at just a snapshot of who you are, you've got 1 sentence here to describe who you are and what you're doing. Right. So if all that person sees is this top part of your profile, then what information can they take from it? Now, some people have programmer at company. Some people have just the job title, or some people will say what they're doing within their roles. So I see people that sit within my job on my team saying that they help organizations maximize revenue through using LinkedIn. Okay, that's a nice little snazzy headline of what their actual role is, okay? For me, I have 3 things included within this, okay? And that kind of I actually don't know what it's called, but that line that comes straight down as opposed to the slash that's there is one thing that people utilize quite a lot. So I have that I'm a principal customer success manager at LinkedIn. I'm a #1 dad. My 2 boys only have 1, so I win that award every single year. Easy one. And I've got that I'm a social impact program manager, because it's one of the things that I'm probably most proud of within my particular role. It's one of the things that gives me one of the kind of things that fills my cup outside of just my regular day job. The thing that people reference whenever they reach out to me isn't customer success manager stuff. It isn't the social impact stuff. It's the #1 dad part. That's a real bridge in terms of connectivity. So many people are parents, even those that aren't. Some people call it out and say, I love that you call that out because it's something personal about you. But it helps people get to know me a little bit better. This is my priority. These are the things that I do. Okay, so have a think about that in terms of what you would like to share. Now, given I'm unaware as to what your guys' experience are from an education point of view or from like a working history point of view, but you will know what will make sense for your role. There are particular industries that are a lot more nailed down in terms of what do you actually do and how do you do it. And then there are those that are a bit more open to interpretation. Okay, customer success management is a relatively new industry in itself, but it's spanning now outside of tech. It's moving into the more traditional industries in terms of how people look at how they service their clients. So there's a huge amount of soft skills that play within my role. So personality types, stage of career, stage of learning development are big components of what people look for within customer success managers at different levels of experience. So that's where I come to my experience section to make sure that I have defined what my role is, what types of responsibilities that I went. One of the questions that I always get asked is, should my experience section be set up like my CV? Should it be bullet points on what I did? Okay, I like to make sure that people are setting up their profiles to be visually digestible. If you think of how much time you would spend on someone else's profile to try and gather information, what do you look for? You look for keywords, headlines, and visuals. Nobody typically reads through lists on another individual. Okay, so if you can summarize what you did within your role within a sentence or two or three, that's, to me, is the best way to go about it. That's also where you can start to take the keywords from your jobs question on the skills that are listed. That's where you can start to take those keywords and incorporate them into it. Okay. Product innovation is a keyword two keywords that I see getting thrown around within customer success manager roles. Now that's something that I can speak to. Right. And sorry, go ahead, Jeff. Quick question. If you had unrelated skills. So that's a really great question, and it's a nice segue. Thank you very much. So what you need to do, and the question was there is I have many skills that have been developed over or kind of a diverse working background or learning background. Would that be fair to say? Yeah. So how do I set up my profile to speak to that? So what I would do there is make sure that you've got your experience section totally filled out, and that any relevant keywords or skills get included within there. And again, that's where you can not necessarily, you're not making sure that people are going to go and read that, but set it up for a way that someone could read it really quickly. From a discoverability point of view, that's where those keywords are so important, because recruiters can utilize what they call Boolean string functionality. So they can compile a list of keywords, and they can actually search across every member's profile, and any member that has that profile or that keyword listed on their profile will now show up within their search. So if there are things that you have, say, listed within your skills, but let's say you've maxed out to 50, you've used all 50, how can you now keep all of the skills that you have represented on your profile? You can, so you can do it within the experience section, but also your about section, your summary section is really, really important here. One thing I will show you guys just on the experiences before I speak to the about section now really quickly. Anywhere, again, you've got a pencil mark is where you can go about updating what you have here. So you can see here, this is my current experience, right? Principal Customer Success Manager. I've been in this role 9 months. I actually don't have a blurb as to what I do within my role right now. So I'm still kind of defining it at the minute. But what I can do is I can add in the products that I've worked with or the tools that I've worked with. And if I want to as well, if I think about what I mentioned earlier on around that visual side of things, if there are any presentations that you guys have done, if there are any videos, recordings, if there's any collateral, any materials that you've produced that you have online, even a link to a particular page, you can actually include that media there. Okay, and you can add it as a link, or you can actually upload a file within that, and that will get its own little thumbnail. So even from a visual standpoint, when people scroll down through, that's now a link maybe they can click to have a look at, as opposed to having to read down through a list. So you might give that key high level takeaway of this is what I did within this role, here's what I achieved, here's who I worked with, and right below that then we've got that visual cue. So if I give you guys an idea on how that looks on my current profile, so you can see here the work that I've done with the job care team. That's actually a link to a post that I put on LinkedIn, but it takes the picture and it takes the high level summary. Okay, I partner with our job care company within Ireland. So this is a webinar that we did during COVID. Here's the link, and here it is. Again, here are some awards that I won within my previous role. Here's some of the webinars that I've hosted. Here's a guest speaking event that I had. But those links are actually links to a LinkedIn post that I posted about it. So I don't necessarily have this like massive cohort of materials that I've produced, but maybe these are things that I've spoken about. Maybe this is something that I've posted somewhere, right? And those images and those visuals get taken in from when I click in onto the media, and I can just copy and paste the URL. Really quick and simple, but from a visual standpoint now, Senior Customer Success Manager, okay, guest speaker, highlights, webinars. Anyone that comes onto my profile now, that there are things they can take away. You'll only find mine as Robert. You won't find it as Robbie, just to call out. So it's Robert O'Neill. You won't find me as Robbie. I try and make sure I'm as hard to find as possible, to be honest, because I'm not a huge social media user myself. In terms of the other functionality I mentioned, so we've got our open to work here. So when I click onto that, I can see if I want to say that I'm, where is it? Here we go. Sorry. So I'm open to finding a new job. Okay, now I can add in job titles. I can add in the location types. I can add in the actual location as well. And there's your flexibility and immediately applying. And I can suggest that it's only open for recruiters to view. So that won't add a profile banner to my image, right? And only recruiters will be able to discover my profile within that way. Or I can choose to have it publicly open to everybody just within my network to see. I would recommend the network one, to be perfectly honest, because again, you don't know who within your network might be able to connect you to an opportunity or even an individual within their organization that they could offer an introduction to as well. The about section is the one that I do want to spend a little bit of time on, okay? Because this is where I tend to find people become the most rigid in terms of the information that they share and that they include. This is your opportunity to really show yourself as the differentiator, in my opinion. To show yourself as someone joining the organization rather than a list of skills and experiences. Has anyone been through a hiring process recently? Right, so the initial contact is usually a short, sharp conversation. It's almost like a screening thing. What people are trying to take away from that is would this person be a valuable addition to my team? Would they work well with everybody else? Would they work well with me? And are they a fit for the organization? In layman's terms, can we work with this person? Who are they? What do they do? And why did they do it? Your about section is a really, really important tool for you to be able to communicate that to strangers. Right? When I left college, my eternal wisdom, I left with no degree, not even an associate's degree, nothing. And I went out to work and I started working within a healthcare company as a sales development representative and moved into a product manager and a territory manager for them. I then decided to move abroad, and I actually worked in construction for 3 years, something I'd never done before, no experience in. Between that, I worked in bars, I'd worked as landscaping, worked in a bank for 6 months, and I came home then into Ireland and had no way to communicate to people why I had done the things that I had done. And now I was looking to get into tech. I was looking to get into digital advertising, right? But I had no way to communicate to people like, why have I done the things that I've done? What is the common theme here? This is where I really started to utilize my about section, because people would automatically look at my experience and go, no, doesn't fit the mold, doesn't fit the mold, doesn't fit the mold. What I found was when I actually went about tailoring my about section to speak to my experiences rather than explaining them, I was able to pick out what the common theme for me was. Right, I'm really excited by learning new things. I love new challenges. Right, I love working with different people. I love working with different backgrounds. Right, I love trying to make things better. Right, and I want to enjoy every single day that I have. Those are the things that I bring to an organization. So the hiring manager that hired me into LinkedIn picked out my about section and literally said, and has called this out to me before and said, I wanted to have a conversation with you because I wanted to figure out what you were doing and why you were doing it. Right, you gave me enough there, but I wanted more information. Right, now I'm not saying all of these things to say how great Robbie's profile is and how well it did for him, right? Because I was 18 months trying to get a job here. Right, it was a long process. But I'll always come back to my about section because it allows me to speak to who I am, what I do, why I do it, and what I would bring to an organization within my role. So I really strongly recommend that you guys create a good blend of what is your personal experience, What is your professional experience? Because always remember, people are looking to hire people, right? They'll utilize the skills to identify individuals. They'll focus on the person when it comes to hiring. Okay, you are a combination of your experiences and all the skills that you have gathered, rather than just a combination of your working experience. Right? Now, when I speak to audiences that are part of the kind of traditional Irish culture, it's not something that we're really good at. A lot of people see it as kind of peacocking. They see it as us kind of shouting out our ego. These are the things that I'm great at, and we're not particularly good at that. Okay, I'm not advocating for you guys to use that part of the profile to shout about how good you are. I wanted to shout about who you are and what you do. So it's really important to include information like, what do you do outside of work? What are you passionate about? What do you do to grow and develop? Right? And if you don't have this filled out at the moment, that's totally fine. There are 3 things that I would recommend that you do that will allow you to do this really quickly. Outside of ChatGPT, that's usually a pretty good one to give you a starting point for it, right? But if you think about what made you happy that you did personally in the last 6 months, what are you looking forward to in the next 6 months? There are 2 things that you could utilize to really speak to like who you are as an individual. Like, what have you really, really enjoyed over the last 6 months? Right? Is it running? Is it cycling? Is it kayaking, walking, exploring new places, meeting new people? What is it? What are you looking forward to that's coming down the line? Okay. The third part, which is probably the most difficult part to do, is to try and pull it all together to say what you would bring into a particular team, what you would bring to a particular manager, what you would bring to a particular role. So the research that you guys are doing on the jobs that you're looking for, right? You're seeing all the different skills. You can see what they're asking for. You can see what they need. How do you fit within that mold? That's typically the last paragraph, and it's typically the most difficult to pull together. So for those in the room who haven't been staring blankly at my about section, for those of you guys on the Zoom, I appreciate you sticking with this one for a little while. I'll read through a couple of bits of mine, and maybe that might give you guys some ideas. Okay, so one of the things that I call out is that I'm really proud to have a diverse working history, ranging from the worlds of banking to bartending, plumbing to posture management, digital advertising to the exciting world of customer success within global talent acquisition, and my most recent transition into the sales solution side of the business. In addition to this role, I'm also passionate about social impact and environmental sustainability. And I manage the primary nonprofit partner, JobCare, and it affords me the opportunity to do things like this, right? The thing that I call out then, which I think is specific to any type of role that I might be going for, is I speak to my experience. And I say my experience in terms of how my profile is laid out on LinkedIn. I call out specifically that the common denominator in the jumps that are mentioned in my experience section is my desire to learn and achieve success and build meaningful relationships with those that I engage with. I'm a sports fanatic and I coach with my local GAA club. I've recently undertaken paddle because my playing days have been ended by an injury that I sustained a number of years ago. And I've undertaken cycling as a way to keep myself fit and healthy mentally and physically. So now this person who lands onto my profile knows who I am right now, knows what I'm doing, knows what I'm passionate about within my work, knows what I'm passionate about without my work. And all that information is there to create connectivity, to create that bridge that I can gap, or that gap that I can bridge for them. Okay, who is this person? There it is right there. What does he do? Here it is at the top. Why does he do that? There it is down at the bottom. What will he bring to the team? Well, he's called it out there, right? Maybe a conversation would lead to like, is he actually that person? Does he actually do those things, right? Again, I'm not saying that my profile is tip top. There are things that I haven't done on mine. There are things that I don't want to do on mine, but it's mine. It's 100% up to me what I do within it. But I think it's really important for me to be able to communicate, because I'm quite confident now that an absolute stranger would land onto my profile and have some idea of who I think I am. Right. The last activity that I would recommend that you guys do when it comes to the profile is, once you've set it up, maybe once you've updated it, Maybe you've put in a bit more personal information. Show it to a partner, show it to a friend, show it to a family member, show it to someone who knows you. You'll typically get fairly blunt honesty from someone that you're close to. They'll tell you what you are and what you aren't, and they'll tell you what you've called out, and they'll tell you what you haven't called out, that they might consider something that's a skill that you have, or something that's a really core value that you have, or something that you might mean to them as well. It's a really interesting thing to do. All right. And I did it by accident. I left my laptop open and my wife came in one day when I was updating mine when we moved back here. And she was like, you haven't done this, you haven't called out this. Like, why have you said that? Like, you haven't done that in a long time. I was like, Jesus, okay, give me a break. But it's a really important thing to be able to gather feedback. And it's also an important thing to kind of take some of the pressure away from these types of updates, right? A lot of people have, earlier on, I spoke to like the kind of anxiety and pressure that can be around utilizing social media and putting yourself out there and utilizing your profile to do it. That might gamify it a little bit. That might make it a little bit fun. You guys can have a laugh at yourselves, your partner, your friend, your family member. You can sit down and have a laugh at yourself while you're doing it, but you can get some really good feedback while you're doing it too. I'm really conscious that I'm close on time. Oh, I know we started late. I'm here to go over if you guys are willing to stick around. I did want to show a couple of things just on the job seeking side of things, if I could, really, really quickly. So here's one that I made earlier on in the week. Now, you guys might see here, we'll share the recording out for if you can't see what's on the screen, by the way. You guys will see here, right? I'm just going to look for a customer success manager within Ireland. Okay. One of the recommendations that I always make is that you guys utilize all filters. For anyone that's not doing it now, please do. It's going to save you so much time. So all filters are here on the right-hand side. I'm just going to reset that for now. So you can see here, I've got Customer Success Manager Ireland. I've got 1,480 results. Okay. Now, do I think for a second there are 1,480 customer success managers jobs in Ireland right now? Absolutely not, with the way that the industry is going. Okay. So let me try and figure out what's going on here within this job search. So I'm going to hit on to all filters, right? So now I can sort out these jobs by the most recent. And maybe in the most recent, I want jobs that are just posted within the last week. Now, if I look down the bottom, I'm down to 617 results. Okay, let's say I want to focus at a particular organization. I can do that now with the company filter. So I can see how many of these jobs are at MongoDB. There's 4. I can see how many of these are at PayPal. There's 5 in my results now. So that means there's 1 at PayPal. But I can actually go about isolating out individual organizations if I want to. And that'll be important for what I'm going to show you now in a second. But I'll leave this bare for now and I'll focus on the job type. So I'm focused on full-time work. So now I'm down to 560 results, right? I have 2 boys, so flexibility in my schedule is really important to me. So I'm going to look for hybrid or remote. And now I'm down to 286 jobs. Okay, if I want to focus out on a particular location, right? Ireland, it's a fairly small island, but I'm not going to be driving 3 hours for a job. Okay, so I want to focus on Dublin. Right, now I'm down to 163 and I started out with 1480. I can isolate out individual industries or particular functions, right? That'll make a lot more sense for anyone that's in a specific role. So if you guys are looking at roles within the finance industry, but the accounting function, someone who's looking for roles within sales, within IT, that's where you could utilize out the function and the industry, for example. Okay, now I come down here and I can see the titles. This is really important because now I'm looking at what we call the LinkedIn taxonomy. So what relevant skills a customer success manager role has, LinkedIn will take and it will actually bring you other relevant roles that you might not consider. So I can see here things like operations manager, project manager, customer experience manager, but I just want customer success manager. So I'll select that. Now I'm down to 4, right? But now I know that that job is either hybrid or remote in Dublin, posted within the last week. Okay, and it specifically calls out customer success manager. Now, it would have taken me a while of scrolling through those 1,400 jobs to figure out what those 4 were. Right, so please utilize the filters as much as we possibly can. I'm going to take these 2 out. I just want to see how many are overall. So now I've got 10 results when I take out the hybrid and remote. So I'm just going to show those 10. Now, the important part here is I can see all of my different filters. The important part for me is now I can set that alert and click that button. And when this pops up here, I can click in onto manage alerts. Now what I can see, right, I've got a couple turned on from the different presentations that I've been doing. But if I wanted to edit any of these, now I can actually see how I want the tool to do some of the work for me, which is what I spoke about earlier on. Now I'm confident I've got a job search that's going to find me the jobs that I wanted to find, right? I can find it at the organizations that I want, within the industries, within the functions. And now I can choose how I want LinkedIn to alert me on when any new jobs that are relevant to my filters show up, right? So I can choose a daily email or a daily notification within the tool. Okay. Takes away some of the pressure of me having to go in and recreate the same steps and the same search over and over, try and find out the jobs that I haven't viewed, try and make sure that I'm looking at the most recent ones, right? And you guys can set up as many of these alerts as you want. So you can set up different alerts for different job titles, different alerts for hybrid, alerts for remote, alerts for particular companies, right? Or different industries, okay? Really important for me to show you guys that, because it's something that I wish I learned when I was in the job seeking space, because I never actually bothered to click the all filters. I've spent so much time within these jobs, right? The last thing I wanted to share, right, is just to kind of show you guys how, from a visual point of view, the premium adds value to what you guys are going to be doing, right? So I can see straight away here that I can meet the hiring team, right? There's the recruitment manager at Cubicle, and he says, we are hiring, right? There's his headline. Okay, that's right there. So now with my access to premium, I can actually send that person an email. That's a specific LinkedIn message that he can choose to accept or reject. But again, you now have the capacity to send something to him rather than just another connection request within his network, right? Now, if he accepts your mail, you might go about connecting with him, keeping in touch, blah, blah, blah. When it comes down here, I want to be able to see all of this information here should guide. So here's my responsibilities. And here's the important stuff. All of this information should guide how your profile is set up to speak for you. So the information that's included here, right? So I want to pick out a couple here, right? So drive exceptional customer outcomes, right? That's not something that I can quantify without examples or experiences. So that's one thing I'm going to consider a soft skill, right? Roll up your sleeves and actively engage in customer success activities, onboarding, training, and providing strategic guidance to key accounts. Again, not something that I can turn around and say, have this piece of paper, I can go and do this. But when I think about how I might utilize the experience part of my profile now for previous jobs that I've had, I could almost copy and paste that sentence in. So huge fan of reverse engineering the information that they're providing you as to how you can set your profile up to making sure that it's going to speak on your behalf for the types of jobs that you're applying for. Now, that particular sentence there would do me a good service for any customer success manager job that I'm going for, right? So to your point earlier on about like, what are the differences? Like, that's one that I would probably pick out. Okay, so I have the capacity to impact product. I have the capacity to impact internal teams, external teams, the customers that I work with, and even more broadly within the kind of stakeholder network that I consider mine as a customer success manager. All by focusing on exceptional customer outcomes. And what was the other one? Sorry. And actively engaging in customer success activities. Right? Now, that's easy for me to say because I've been in customer success for the last 5 years. But you guys, you get the rationale here on how you might go about it based on your roles that you're looking for and the information that's being included, right? If I come down here to the important things, right? They're looking for problem solvers. Okay? They're looking for people to put the right solution in play, and then will take the right level of experience to do that, right? And it's a dual role. So to be able to solve, inspire, lead, and do is key. So again, these are all soft skills that they're calling out here. It's a lot of really good information that I can take in terms of my preparation for an interview, but also more importantly, how my profile is set up to be able to speak to these, either from a skills point of view or either from my experience section or my about section. So take what they're giving you. You had mentioned earlier on about like what skills it will list. So here now, Premium's going to tell me how I match. So apparently I'm a top 10 or top 10% of applicants based on my profile, because I have 7 of these skills, right? So there's communication, CRM, customer satisfaction, but I've also got 3 missing. So performance, motivation, problem solving, and organization skills. They're things that I think I probably have, but maybe things I haven't just added to my profile, right? So if I think I have them, that's all well and good, but kind of recruiter turn around and see that I have these skills ready to go. And I can now click in to add these skills onto my profile, and I can see how I'm comparing to other applicants. One of the things I really want to call out on this is from an applicant's point of view, please remember, these numbers are based on people clicking the apply button on LinkedIn. The vast majority of application clicks get sent to an external website, right? So you'll get sent on to the company's website to fill out their application process there, okay? The drop-off rate that I used to see within that role was anywhere between 70 and 90% as an industry standard in talent acquisition. So when I come across here and I see 299 applicants for this particular role, I'm thinking, Jesus, right, that's a lot of people. Now I'm going into this pool. You could basically cut 70% of those as a rule of thumb. If you think of it from an e-commerce point of view, if you guys click onto something, you go through, you add it to your basket, right? 60% of people don't actually buy it. Probably more for certain websites, right? Depending on the product. So please just remember that when you see that the amount of applicants that might be there, right? Just take it with a pinch of salt, apply that quick calculation and say, right, out of those 300 people, I can get rid of 70% of those, okay? Because we are not collecting applications on LinkedIn. We're usually sending them somewhere else. Okay, but based on your premium, guys, again, you got a lot of really good information here around the latest trends at the company, right? You can see what education people have within it. You can see more information about the company, and there's more premium insights here on show. I see there's one thing in the Q&A. I'm really conscious of your guys' time. And the Q&A, that was answering my question earlier on. Thank you very much, Experience. Appreciate it. Are there any questions from you guys here in front of me? In terms of what I've just shown, was that useful?
Yeah.
In terms of how you would go about utilizing your profile? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was in UAE, I was a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And why I'm because I said that as time seeker. So I want to make a profile, but I don't want to know about where I am.
Mm-hmm.
So
think about
should I
so
make another one and make it private?
I think you could quite easily just go about making your one private, but you would need to kind of go through your network.
And delete.
Yeah, you need to go through your network and remove the connections that are there.
And keep it. Or should I keep it and make another one?
I would try. I always recommend that people try and keep to one if they can. One of the things that you could do is you could open up a ticket with our chat team, like our support team on chat. So if you come in here and you click on the drop down, you should have the option for help. Yeah. And there's where you'll get different questions that you can pop in there. So if you're talking about having 2 profiles, right, it will give you the best answers there. And if you don't see the answers in the article, then there's a chat functionality that you can utilize there. And you can kind of talk through our member support team on what is the best kind of solution for you there. I would try and keep it as clean as possible by not setting up a new one, right? But if you do set up a new one, make sure you get onto member support to delete the old one, and you'll be able to share your reasoning for it, and which that will be a key thing for them to actually go and delete it. So two options there. One is probably more time consuming than the other, but it will allow you to kind of keep the profile that you have right now. Brilliant. Any other questions in the chat? Don't see anything popping up. Cool. Otherwise, I'm really sorry for going over so long, you guys. Really appreciate your patience. Thank you much for staying with us. If you want to know how we actually went about figuring out our technical issues, this is what we ended up doing. So a tech company is always dealing with technical issues. Really appreciate the time. Guys, take care.